Welcome to the Book Angle, where we talk about books from different angles and sometimes go in circles. I'm Anna, and this is Sabrina. And today we are going to be talking about how we find new books to read.
Yeah, this is something that I've actually been asked more than once, where someone was like, "Hey, I am reading again. I read this one book that I found on social media and I liked it. Where can I find more? Like, what should I read?" So we decided to turn it into a topic of discussion because also the way that you find books is very different from my madness methodology. But yeah.
Yeah. So before we started recording, we were like, we're both kind of recovering English majors, in that we had to read a lot in college that was not things that we would have chosen for ourselves.
Never.
And
Mhm.
um, forewarning to anyone who is considering being an English major, while I did love being an English major and getting my degree, it can really hurt your love of reading and
Yeah,
put you into a significant reading slump, which is what happened for both of us, I think.
yeah. Because we kept on reading stuff, I think with a really critical lens, thinking,
Mm-hmm.
oh, we have to get more from this, or what is this meaning? What is this? And we just we unlearned how to just read for fun. And
Right.
so I think a lot of um post-college has been healing that inner child that wanted to be an English major because we loved stories and we loved writing and we loved reading. And so here we are.
Yep. So, my reading journey was that after college, well, let me go back. Before I went to college, I would go to the library probably 2 to 3 times a week. And I would pick out books purely based off of like their cover and
Mhm.
the back of the book, or if they were written by authors that I already knew that I liked.
Yeah.
And I did reread a lot of books in high school, middle school at the time. Like if I liked it, I probably read it once or twice a year. I don't really do that. I do reread things, but I really don't read them that often anymore. And then after college, I remember walking into a bookstore one day and being like, I feel like an imposter in a bookstore because I'm looking around being like, none of this is catching my attention. And I just feel like everything I'm picking up is exhausting to read. Um, and then I discovered Book Talk.
Yeah. My high school journey was different. When I was reading, and also middle school, I was reading what everyone else was reading.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of the books that I read were, Harry Potter, The Lightning Thief, Twilight, Divergent, Hunger Games, just because those were the books that my peers around me were reading. And I had I moved around a lot, but I do remember certain librarians, I would go up to them and say, I liked this book. What else should I read? And then they would pick it out, and I would just trust them blindly. I'd be like, okay, cool. Um, and then during college, then I was reading some dense, thick
Mm.
books, real thick. And then after, I actually still shout out to my wonderful sister-in-law, Marissa, because I actually think she was the person who helped me break my reading slump because she was reading, what do you know? A Man Called Uva by Frederick Bachman, which I really enjoyed. And she recommended it to me and just said, "Hey, I really liked this book." And I think I borrowed her copy. I'm not sure. But most of the time, it was solely based on other people's recommendations for me. But I have a different madness that I'll explain after you talk about book talk.
Yeah, so I joined TikTok with many, many, many people during COVID, and I did not find Book Talk right away. It probably took me 3 to 4 months to like train my algorithm that I liked books and I was interested in them and that I wanted to see that kind of content. I was reading a lot and posting about reading a lot, but my algorithm had not quite figured out what I wanted to see. And then it
Mhm.
started showing me A Court of Thorns and Roses. And I was like, oh, that kind of sounds interesting. Someone described it as a like Beauty and the Beast retelling. And I was like, I like retellings. I like Beauty and the Beast. That's a very loose term for that book, but that is the series that was like, oh my gosh, I like reading again after reading this. And so that's really when I started focusing, like watching videos and like basically TikTok learned that was what I was going to watch all the way through was like content like that. And so it's just dumped a bunch of stuff in my lap.
Hmm.
And I just started adding things to my Goodreads account. I created a Goodreads account and then I started adding things to my want to read list on Goodreads. And Goodreads will also suggest books to you based off of like what you like. It'd be like similar books, right? You can like look for things that are similar. Another place that I was finding a lot of suggestions was actually Amazon, where I would add something to my want to or my wish list, and it would say again like similar books. I'm like, oh, this sounds interesting as well. I'll add that. So I was kind of in this period where I was just getting tons and tons and tons of suggestions, and I kind of just created lists for them and these different locations. Goodreads, I think, is my most stable place for where I keep my want to reads. Um, I also have gotten suggestions from Instagram. I will say I actually trust Instagram less because it's very aesthetic focused. And that comes again from like Instagram being a photo sharing app first.
Yeah.
And people really like curated, kind of like beautiful images. And the funny skits that got popular on TikTok are sometimes popular on Instagram, but people are mean there. Man, they nasty. So so I get most of my suggestions scrolling through my TikTok feed, and I thought about like, is there like content creators that I could suggest? And I'm like, there are, um, but I get most of my suggestions because of like just random people that show up on my For You page. And they will say, if you liked this, then you should try this. Or do you like these tropes? Or does this synopsis sound interesting? Then you should read this.
So do you have specific, because you talked a lot about training your algorithm. So if
Mhm.
someone were, hey, I'm new to book talk, what would you suggest that they do? Because it's not necessarily following a content creator, but like, should they share it, like it, comment it? Like,
Right.
how does it work on training your algorithm?
Yeah, so your algorithm will learn what you like to see based off of how long you spend on a video and how you engage with it. And engagement in this case would be liking it, commenting on it, sending it to a friend, copying
Mhm.
the link, whatever, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Um, so it or going to someone's profile. So say like somebody comes across my For You page and I'm like, "Ooh, this book really sounds interesting. Let me go to their profile page and see what other videos they've posted." And it will be like, okay, so this person likes to post about books. They use this hashtag a lot. Then I'm going to start showing you content by this creator as well as other people who've used the same hashtag. So that is a way that you could potentially train your algorithm to show you more book things. Is first start by searching a hashtag like bookworm, book talk, bookish, book nerd, that kind of thing, and looking at videos, watching them all the way through, even if you're like, this particular thing is not super interesting to me, watching them all the way through, and then either liking or commenting on ones that you particularly like, or going to profile pages of those creators and looking through what other things they've posted. That is a very quick way. You could do that in an afternoon to train your
Yeah.
algorithm that I really like books, show me more books, and then it will start showing you things, and you'll be able to, it'll start to learn what kind of books you're interested in based off of how long you then watch those videos. So it kind of like tiers down, if that makes sense. So if you start to watch a lot of fantasy related book videos, it's going to show you more fantasy related book videos. um, that's kind of like how I mean, that's how I've done it. And also, that is the most consistent way that I get my book recommendations is between that and um, following authors that I'm interested in. Um, it took me a while to get to that level of like, I now trust this author and I want to read whatever they write. There are a few authors out there that I'm like, I'm curious in what you put forward. I may not necessarily read everything that you write because not everything they write is going to sound interesting to me, but I will follow a lot of them that I like. I'm like, I liked what you wrote. I want to see what else you've done. So I'll follow their Instagram page or I'll follow publishers. So I follow like Bloomsbury, Tor, um, Penguin Random House. I'm trying to think of what the other one is. Oh, that I follow. Oh, Orbit. Normally, like I'm gonna like something if it is put through these publishers, like the things that they choose. So.
So it kind of sounds like if someone's wanting to start on like the social media route for recommendations, start with those tips for training your algorithm. Then once you learn more about, hey, I really liked these three books from this publisher, go straight to the source, try to find that. And then eventually, I think all authors in general too would probably appreciate that you like follow their page and see
Yeah.
what they're up to. I will say I don't think I've done as good of a job with training my algorithm as you did. So maybe you've given me some tips. But on my personal page, even before we started anything with the book angle, I did typically follow authors and certain publishers who I knew that I really liked. Um, and then also checking out Goodreads. Anna did get me started on Goodreads. I'm like, I feel so, I feel like not quite, but I feel like my English majorness gets to come out a little because now I'm even writing book reviews and I'm like, ta ta ta. Like, I don't know. It just makes me feel excited that I get to, I don't, this sounds dumb, but I get to like contribute to it and I get to
Mm-hmm.
leave a review. And I also know that I have friends who follow me on Goodreads where anytime they've given me a book recommendation, I've liked what they've given me. So I get email alerts with your Goodreads reviews, and I'll read it and be like, maybe we should talk about that one. So definitely check out Goodreads too. So most of yours involve, I don't want to say involve technology because you also do word of mouth too.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, I kind of went the opposite route at first, where I heavily relied on people in person or physically going to bookstores or libraries. So for a long time, and I do think part of it comes with the caveat of I was working with students and trying to show them how to pick out books from a library. I would typically go to certain genres that I knew that I liked, and I would look at the display. Like
Mm-hmm.
that really did make a difference for me, where I would read some of the like the summary that they had, and I thought, huh, that might be interesting. And then the first thing I did was I would read the back, I would read the book cover, jacket, but I would pick it up and I would go to the middle of the book,
Mm-hmm.
which I know typically is something that most people do, but I would read probably the first 4 to 5 pages. And if I was sucked in enough to want to know how did the book get here? Like how is this plot point, or do I like the way it's written? What point of view is it in? Because I was able to know a lot about myself to know I do typically like either a first person point of view or a third person limited point of view where I could really get in that character's head. I was more likely to get it. But then for a long time, when I was struggling post college, having that time, I would actually ask the librarian and I would say, hey, I saw this. Do people typically like this? So I still wanted that connection with someone else to pick it up and see what they had to say. And I did teach students to do something similar of finding out, narrowing on the things that you know that you like. So for that, them genre point of view? Do they like the medium even? So it could be a fantasy graphic novel, or do they want poetry anthologies, or you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So picking out the things that you know that you're interested in, and then reading a part of it, And if you're not interested with 4 to 5 pages, you're probably not going to be interested if you can just tell that the book isn't good. And then if you're still on the fence, I would talk to my library. And I'm still a huge proponent of my public library. I'm sad that the library is not working out in your favor because Anna's library is in like
We've
a
been
small
through,
town.
we're in kind of like a toxic relationship. Um, so yeah, I was just thinking, I was like, your recommendations are great if you have access to a
Mhm.
local bookstore or a local library. And
Yeah.
I do have a local library. Our bookstore closed in 2022. It's been about 2 years. And they were very small. They did have a good selection, but they were very, very small when they were here, and then they've been closed for a while. And my local library and I, um, when I first got my like moved here and got my library card, I was very underwhelmed with their selection. And so I was like, man, they just don't have anything that I'm interested in. And then Sabrina was like, oh, have you heard of this system where they can basically request books from other libraries anywhere in the state? And as long as that book is available, then you can get it to your library. And I was like, no, I have not heard of this, but I'm going to try it out. And I tried it out, and then after talking to my librarian about why my books were taking so long to come in, she was like, "Yeah, so basically, if a book is new, we don't get it, and you
Like a
have to,
6 month waiting
yeah, a
window.
6 month waiting period to get anything that is new. 6 months waiting, and that's I'm." If you're patient, then that's fine, but I'm not. I'm very impatient, and this is kind of like my job, right? Like, this is
Yeah.
um, so being on top of things is kind of important for me. So I was like, okay, so this is not going to work for new books. And
It works for other
it
books.
works for other books, but it's not a like I still have to wait like a week and a half to get anything in, because my library I can't go like basically what I'm saying is for your recommendation was go to your library and look at the books there. I don't have the books there to look at. I have to order them in from a different library because
Yeah,
my library doesn't have fantasy.
that's
Um,
fair.
we don't have a fantasy section in my library.
I
That's
have I
how
have a
limited.
backup one, but yeah.
We do have science fiction, and some books that are considered fantasy are shelved under science fiction. But
Mm,
our science fiction shelf is one row. Um,
yeah.
it's
So, with that in mind, that was what I was saying. When I was first trying to think of ways to help, I did know I was going to have students in front of me. We did always have access to like a school library.
hmm
And that is something that I do because I'm fortunate, I live in an area where it's super close to my library, and I live next to major cities and districts where the sharing app works for me. Um, but something else that I've done, and I'm not even just saying that because we're here, it will also depend on if I see something that's interesting, because again, I really cared about other people's experiences. Sometimes I would go to YouTube and I would literally look up YouTube reviews on did this person like it?
hmm
Also Reddit. I love Reddit. I really do. Because if I see a book that I like, then I could probably Google search books similar to blah 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 and add Reddit at the end, and someone is bound to have a thread for me where they talk about the books that they liked, what books are similar, and why they enjoyed it. So it's very similar to what you're saying with using social media. It's just I wasn't as well versed with all things social media until you quite literally had to teach me. Like I was old grandma status, like what do I press? But I was able to Google and I was able to go on YouTube. And so that was probably the two bigger things that I did for a while because I was so dependent on what other people liked because I didn't like anything for so long. I just needed that word of mouth experience.
hmm
So, in addition to that, if you're also fortunate enough to have friends who like to read, which is actually hard. We have a lot of people who comment on our videos saying, I wish I had a book bestie. I'm in another situation where I have a lot of friends who like to read. And so oftentimes they'll say, Hey, I just finished reading this. Do you want to read it? And we actually share books within each other. So I guess if you're fortunate enough to live by a library or a bookstore, try out the elimination of the things that you know you like and seek those things out only. It's basically a really quick, it's almost like a dating website where it's like
Hmm.
swipe left if you like it, swipe right if it's boring, and just go through it kind of fast. Ask your librarian, check out Reddit if for whatever reason you're not on social media, YouTube videos, and then train your Instagram and TikTok algorithms, and then follow the people who you like and see how it goes. And don't force yourself to read a book that you think is terrible, because I think that will also further if you're in a slump or if you don't know what to like. I know that I can feel overwhelmed if everyone says, This is so good. This is the best book ever. And then I'm reading it. I'm like, but I don't like it. Does that mean I don't like to read? Does that mean I don't like what's popular or good? No, you just haven't found what you like yet. And so going through that process of elimination is going to help. It doesn't mean that you're dumb or that you don't like books if you don't
Hmm.
like the popular book. And I don't like when people bully others for not liking their book choices on social media. It's my rant. Be
Yeah.
nice.
Yeah. I feel like there was a time where I felt guilty for not finishing a book.
Mhm.
And then I had to like think about what is this coming from? Like, is this because I feel like there's this expectation that if I spent money on something that I have to enjoy it? Or like I that's just don't do that. Don't do that to yourself. Don't make yourself not like your own hobbies because of like this expectation that you have to enjoy it all of the time. Um there's bad books out there. Like it's okay to be like this is not for me. Other people like it, but it's not for me and put it down and move on with your life and enjoy something. Like we have so much limited time to read. Like your time to read is finite. Like we only have so much time in this world. Don't fill it with bad books. Like
Don't do it. That's our, if you can't tell, you know how we said we're healing our inner child. We want to make sure that you learn from what we were forced to
yeah.
endure. Find
I
books you like, put down books that you don't, move on. It's okay if you don't like what other people like.
yeah.
It's fine.
Just I'm a hardcore DNF if you don't like it.
Yeah. I'm not going to push myself to do something because I want to enjoy reading. I had to finish way too many books that I didn't like for
Mm-hmm.
4 years, and I'm okay with not doing that anymore.
Yeah.
So, but I think, so yeah. So I guess if I had to summarize, train TikTok algorithm, use Goodreads, use the suggestion. If you're lucky to have stuff in person, use your librarian, find the genres you like, have friends who recommend stuff, and Reddit.
Yeah, I
Those
think
are the tips.
you could sum it up a lot by just saying use the internet.
Okay,
um,
well,
Google
that's
is your friend in this case. And I did not know that. I just didn't, because I grew up in a bubble where I was the only person I knew that liked to read. All of my friends might enjoy reading very, very popular things, but they didn't read on a regular basis. It was not something that they would like do for fun. And so I just kind of thought I was alone and nobody really talked about reading until I found social media and started seeing all of this stuff. And there was a resurgence of kind of this like energy around reading and this community that I discovered that I never had before. And so I want to encourage anyone who's watching this. There are people out there who love to read and make it their personality, and we are some of them. So if you found us, you probably found other people as well. But you're not alone, and it a good book is a Google search away.
I feel like that's how we should end it.
Yeah.
So Google search away.
I'll
But
get off my pedestal of like my preaching. Like I get very energetic about book recommendations.
there. Okay. Well, A new book is a Google search away. And on that note, thank you so much for watching and
Like and subscribe.
bye.
Bye.